There is something you carry that others can sense the moment you enter a room, a rare aura that only true empaths possess, and Carl Jung's hidden research reveals why this invisible energy makes you both magnetic and vulnerable. Jung discovered that true empaths don't just feel emotions, they radiate what he called the wounded healer frequency, an energetic signature forged through pain but transformed into something far more powerful. This aura isn't born from natural goodness, but from psychological alchemy that most people never achieve. In his private notes, Jung documented how this rare empathic aura operates on multiple dimensions simultaneously. It can heal others simply through presence, but it also attracts both light and shadow in ways that can either elevate or destroy the empath who carries it. The most shocking part? Jung realized that this aura becomes dangerous when empaths don't understand its true nature. Without conscious awareness, it becomes a beacon for energy vampires while slowly consuming the empath from within. Join me as we descend into Jung's most profound insights about the invisible energy field that surrounds true empaths, and why understanding this rare aura is the difference between being a wounded healer and a sovereign one. Because here's what Jung discovered that modern psychology still refuses to acknowledge. Your empathic aura isn't a gift you were born with. It's a psychological survival mechanism that transformed into something sacred through what I call traumatic alchemy. Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But for empaths, becoming who you truly are means first understanding why your nervous system developed this extraordinary sensitivity. It wasn't random, it was adaptive. Think about this from Jung's perspective on psychological development. He observed that empaths often emerged from childhood environments where emotional survival depended on hypervigilance. You learned to read micro-expressions before you could read words. You developed radar for emotional danger because your safety depended on anticipating the emotional weather around you. But here's what Jung realized that most therapists miss. This survival mechanism didn't just help you navigate childhood trauma, it literally rewired your brain to operate at frequencies that most people can't access. Your mirror neurons became hyperactive. Your limbic system became extraordinarily responsive. Your entire nervous system became what I call an emotional antenna. Modern neuroscience confirms what Jung intuited decades ago. Dr. Elaine Aron's research on highly sensitive persons shows that empaths process sensory information more deeply in the brain regions associated with awareness, emotion, and empathy. But Jung understood something deeper. This neurological difference creates an actual energetic field that others can perceive. But that's not the most extraordinary part. The most extraordinary part is how Jung discovered that this empathic aura functions like what he called psychological radar. It doesn't just receive energy, it actively transmutes it through unconscious alchemical processes. Jung observed that when empaths enter a room, they unconsciously begin what I call energetic archaeology. They dig beneath surface presentations to uncover the emotional truth that others are hiding, even from themselves. Your aura literally reads the shadow projections that people carry. Here's how this actually works, based on Jung's understanding of the collective unconscious. Stage 1. The energetic scan. Your empathic aura automatically attunes to what Jung called feeling-toned complexes, the unconscious emotional patterns that drive people's behavior. You sense their unprocessed grief, their hidden rage, their suppressed fear before they've even acknowledged these emotions exist. Stage 2. The unconscious absorption. Because your psyche developed to be permeable for survival reasons, you begin absorbing these energies without conscious choice. Jung called this participation mystique, the unconscious identification with others' psychological states. Stage 3. The alchemical process. Here's where Jung's understanding becomes revolutionary. Your empathic nervous system doesn't just absorb emotional energy, it processes it through what he termed the transcendent function. You unconsciously transform others' raw emotional material into wisdom, insight, and healing potential. This is why people feel better after being around you, even when you haven't done anything specific. Your aura has literally processed their shadow material and reflected back a more integrated version of their emotional truth. But Jung warned about something crucial. This process only works consciously. When empaths remain unconscious of their alchemical nature, they become what I call emotional sponges instead of psychological alchemists. But here's where Jung's research becomes alarming. Your rare empathic aura creates what he called archetypal attraction patterns that draw both healers and vampires with magnetic force. Jung identified specific archetypes that are unconsciously drawn to empathic auras. The wounded child archetype. People carrying unhealed childhood trauma sense your capacity to witness and hold pain. They're drawn to you because your aura promises the unconditional acceptance they never received. The shadow projector. Individuals who've disowned parts of themselves unconsciously seek empaths to carry their rejected emotions. Your aura becomes a repository for what they refuse to feel. The energy vampire. Jung called these psychological parasites, people whose own empathic development was stunted, so they've learned to survive by feeding on others' emotional energy. But Jung also identified positive archetypes drawn to empathic auras, the conscious seeker. Those doing their own inner work recognize your aura as a mirror for their own growth. They come not to take, but to resonate and co-evolve. The authentic self. People ready to embrace their full humanity are naturally drawn to the permission your aura gives them to feel deeply without shame. The danger lies in what I call archetypal confusion, when empaths can't distinguish between those who come to heal and those who come to feed. Your aura attracts both, but without conscious discernment, you'll drain yourself trying to transform people who aren't ready for transformation. If you've noticed that you attract both deeply spiritual people and deeply troubled people, comment, "I am an archetypal magnet." Now you're discovering what Jung called the wounded healer constellation, why your empathic aura carries both the capacity for profound healing and the vulnerability to being consumed. Jung understood that the wounded healer archetype operates through what I call resonant frequency healing. Your aura doesn't heal others by giving them your energy. It heals by resonating at frequencies that activate their own healing potential. Think about how this works energetically. When someone with unprocessed trauma encounters your empathic aura, they experience what Jung called constellation activation. Your presence awakens the healer archetype within them because you're modeling that it's possible to transform wounds into wisdom. But Jung discovered something profound about this process. The wounded healer can only activate healing in others to the extent that they've done their own shadow work. If you're carrying unintegrated trauma, your aura becomes contaminated with what I call bleeding energy. Instead of inspiring healing, you unconsciously invite others to wound you in the same patterns you haven't healed. This is why empaths often attract narcissists, emotional vampires, and people who seem to need endless rescuing. Your unhealed wounds create an electromagnetic signature that draws people who will reenact your original trauma until you've fully integrated those experiences. Jung wrote, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." For empaths, this means that everyone you attract is showing you something about your own unconscious patterns. The people who drain you are mirroring the ways you drain yourself. The people who can't receive your love are reflecting your own struggles with self-love. The alchemical solution, Jung's solution, was what he called conscious suffering, the willingness to feel your own wounds completely so they can transform into wisdom rather than remaining as open wounds that others can exploit. When you do this inner work, your aura shifts from what I call wounded healer frequency to sovereign healer frequency. You still carry the capacity for profound empathy, but it's now grounded in wholeness rather than woundedness. Here's where Jung's understanding becomes truly revolutionary. Your empathic aura functions as what he called the psychological mirror. It reflects back to others their own capacity for consciousness or unconsciousness. Jung observed that conscious people feel peaceful around empaths because your aura reflects their own inner light back to them. They experience what I call recognition resonance, the joy of being truly seen and accepted for who they authentically are. But unconscious people often feel disturbed around awakened empaths because your aura reflects their shadow material, the parts of themselves they're trying to avoid. This creates what Jung called shadow projection anxiety. They may attack you, try to dim your light, or attempt to make you responsible for their discomfort. This mirror effect explains why empaths often experience such extreme reactions from others. Some people are drawn to you like moths to flame, while others seem inexplicably hostile or threatened by your presence. Let me show you this dynamic in action. The conscious mirror response. When someone doing their own inner work encounters your empathic aura, they feel inspired and elevated. They might say things like, "I feel so peaceful around you," or "You help me remember who I really am." These people energize you because the exchange is mutual. They're also reflecting your light back to you. The unconscious mirror response. When someone avoiding their shadow encounters your empathic aura, they feel triggered and defensive. They might criticize your sensitivity, tell you you're too much, or try to provoke emotional reactions that would lower your frequency to match theirs. These interactions drain you because they're trying to pull you into unconsciousness to avoid facing what your presence is showing them. The predatory mirror response. When energy vampires encounter your empathic aura, they sense opportunity. They recognize your capacity for emotional processing and unconsciously strategize ways to make you their emotional regulator. These are the people who trauma dump, create endless crises, or position themselves as victims who need your constant rescue. Understanding this mirror effect is crucial because it explains why boundary setting feels so difficult for empaths. When you set boundaries with unconscious people, you're not just protecting your energy, you're refusing to enable their avoidance of their own shadow work. But here's Jung's most profound insight about empathic auras. You're not just processing individual emotions, you're connected to what he called the collective unconscious, the shared psychic space that contains all of humanity's experiences, fears, and aspirations. Jung discovered that empaths serve as what I call collective antennae. You're unconsciously tuning into the emotional frequencies of entire groups, communities, even global consciousness patterns. This is why you might feel inexplicably sad during world tragedies, anxious during collective upheavals, or drained in crowded places where many people are carrying unprocessed emotions. Your empathic aura is literally picking up on archetypal energies that transcend individual psychology. You're sensing the collective shadow, humanity's unhealed traumas, suppressed emotions, and disowned aspects of consciousness. This connection to the collective unconscious is both your greatest gift and your greatest challenge. On one hand, it gives you access to universal wisdom, archetypal guidance, and the ability to help heal collective wounds. On the other hand, it can overwhelm you with emotional content that isn't personally yours, but feels intensely real. Jung believed that empaths play a crucial role in collective healing because you can feel what others have numbed themselves to. You serve as early warning systems for collective shadow eruptions, wars, social upheavals, environmental crises. Your empathic aura senses these disturbances before they manifest in the physical world. But Jung also warned that empaths must learn to distinguish between personal and collective material, or they risk what he called psychic inflation, taking on responsibility for healing wounds that belong to all of humanity. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by world events or sensed collective emotions that weren't your own, comment, "I feel the world's pain." Here's Jung's framework for transforming your empathic aura from vulnerability into sovereignty, what I call the AURA method, based on his principles of individuation. A. Acknowledge your energetic nature. Jung emphasized that you cannot integrate what you don't recognize. Most empaths live unconsciously, unaware that they're operating with different neurological wiring and energetic sensitivity. Start by acknowledging that your empathy isn't just emotional, it's energetic. You literally absorb and process information through channels that most people don't access. This isn't weakness. It's a sophisticated form of consciousness that Jung called differentiated perception. Track your energy levels throughout the day. Notice which people, places, and activities energize you versus drain you. Jung called this energy accounting, becoming conscious of how your empathic gifts are being used and abused. You understand your archetypal patterns. Jung believed that everyone operates through archetypal patterns, but empaths are especially susceptible to what I call caretaker complexes, unconscious beliefs that your worth depends on healing others. Identify which wounded healer patterns you're carrying. Do you feel guilty when you're not helping someone? Do you attract people who need fixing? Do you feel responsible for others' emotions? These are signs that your empathic gifts are being driven by unconscious complexes rather than conscious choice. Jung's solution was what he called active imagination, consciously dialoguing with these archetypal patterns to understand their origins and transform their expression. Reclaim your energetic boundaries. Jung understood that healthy boundaries aren't walls. They're what I call conscious membranes that allow love in while keeping manipulation out. For empaths, boundary setting must happen at the energetic level, not just the behavioral level. This means learning to sense when your aura is being invaded or drained and having techniques to restore your energetic integrity. Jung practiced what he called psychological hygiene, regular practices to cleanse absorbed energies and return to your authentic frequency. This might include meditation, time in nature, creative expression, or any activity that helps you remember who you are beneath all the emotions you've absorbed. Activate conscious empathy. Jung's ultimate goal was what he called conscious empathy, the ability to feel with others without losing yourself in them. This is empathy that serves consciousness rather than unconscious compulsions. Conscious empathy means choosing when and how to engage your empathic gifts rather than being at their mercy. It means being able to witness suffering without absorbing it, to offer healing presence without depleting yourself. This level of empathic mastery requires what Jung called the transcendent function, the ability to hold opposites in consciousness. You can be both compassionate and boundaried, both open and protected, both sensitive and strong. When you integrate Jung's principles, something extraordinary happens. Your empathic aura transforms from what I call wounded healer frequency to sovereign healer frequency. Jung observed this transformation in his most advanced patients. The sovereign empath carries all the sensitivity and perceptual gifts of the wounded healer, but these gifts now serve conscious choice rather than unconscious compulsion. The energetic shift. Your aura becomes more radiant, but also more contained. Instead of leaking energy indiscriminately, you radiate what Jung called integrated wholeness, an energetic signature that inspires others to do their own inner work rather than depending on you to process their emotions. People still feel your empathic gifts, but now they experience what I call empowering resonance rather than enabling resonance. Your presence awakens their own capacity for healing rather than creating dependence on your emotional labor. The attraction pattern changes. Jung noted that sovereign empaths attract a completely different archetypal constellation. Energy vampires and emotional parasites naturally fall away because your aura no longer broadcasts the available for draining frequency. Instead, you begin attracting what Jung called individuated souls, people who've done their own shadow work and can meet you at your level of consciousness. These relationships are mutually nourishing because both people are contributing to the energetic exchange rather than one person doing all the giving. The healing becomes effortless. Perhaps most remarkably, Jung observed that sovereign empaths often heal others simply through presence, without conscious effort or energy expenditure. Your integrated aura becomes what I call a healing field that naturally activates growth in others. This happens because you're no longer trying to heal from your wounds, you're healing from your wholeness. Your aura radiates the possibility of integration, showing others that it's possible to transform pain into wisdom, sensitivity into strength, wounds into gifts. Jung believed that empaths serve a crucial function in what he called the collective individuation process, humanity's evolution toward greater consciousness and integration. Your rare empathic aura isn't just a personal gift, it's a collective necessity. In a world where many people have become disconnected from their emotional truth, empaths serve as what I call consciousness bridges. You help others remember their capacity for authentic feeling. But Jung warned about what he called the savior complex, the unconscious belief that you're responsible for healing everyone. This complex actually impedes collective healing because it creates dependency rather than empowerment. The true collective healing mission of empaths is to model what Jung called conscious feeling, the ability to feel deeply while remaining grounded in your own center. When people witness this in your aura, it gives them permission to access their own emotional depth without losing themselves. The ripple effect. Jung observed that when one person in a family system or community achieves this level of empathic sovereignty, it creates what I call consciousness ripples that affect everyone in the system. Your integrated aura gives others permission to stop numbing their emotions and start processing them consciously. This is how collective healing actually happens, not through one person taking on everyone's pain, but through conscious individuals modeling that it's possible to feel everything and remain whole. The evolutionary role. Jung believed that empaths represent an evolutionary development in human consciousness. Your ability to process emotions at such sophisticated levels is preparing humanity for what he called the next stage of psychological development. As more empaths learn to wield their gifts consciously, we move closer to what Jung envisioned as the conscious collective, a humanity that can feel deeply, process shadow material, and integrate wholeness on a species level. But here's Jung's ultimate insight about the rare empathic aura. It's not meant to be a burden you carry. It's meant to be a gift you consciously choose to share. Jung wrote, "Your vision becomes clear when you look into your heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakens." For empaths, this awakening means recognizing that your aura is a reflection of your inner wholeness, not your inner wounds. When you complete the journey from wounded healer to sovereign healer, your empathic gifts become what Jung called a blessing rather than a curse. You can feel deeply without drowning, love fully without losing yourself, heal others without depleting your own life force. This transformation requires what Jung considered the most courageous act possible, the willingness to be authentic in a world that often punishes authenticity. Your rare aura shines brightest when you stop hiding your gifts to make others comfortable and start embodying them as expressions of your truth. The sovereign empath doesn't tone down their sensitivity. They learn to radiate it consciously. They don't dim their light. They learn to shine it strategically. They don't apologize for their depth. They use it to create more depth in the world. If you're ready to transform your empathic wounds into sovereign wisdom, comment, "I choose conscious empathy." Jung developed specific techniques for what he called psychic hygiene, protecting and maintaining the empathic aura while engaging with the world consciously. The energetic cleansing ritual. Jung practiced daily rituals to clear absorbed energies and return to his authentic frequency. This might involve meditation, journaling, time in nature, or creative expression. Whatever helps you distinguish between your energy and energies you've absorbed from others. The key is consistency. Jung understood that empaths need regular energetic maintenance the way athletes need physical training. Your empathic gifts are sophisticated instruments that require conscious care. The Conscious Boundary Protocol. Jung taught what I call energetic Aikido, the ability to redirect others' projections without absorbing them. When someone tries to make you responsible for their emotions, you can acknowledge their pain without taking it on. This requires what Jung called conscious compassion, feeling with others while remaining centered in your own truth. You can witness their struggle without becoming enmeshed in it. The archetypal shield technique. Jung discovered that empaths can consciously invoke protective archetypes when dealing with energy vampires or unconscious projections. You might call upon the warrior archetype for strength, the wise elder for discernment, or the sovereign for unshakable centeredness. These aren't fantasy visualizations. They're ways of accessing different aspects of your own consciousness that can handle challenging energetic situations. Jung's final insight about empathic auras was both simple and profound. The goal isn't to get rid of your sensitivity, it's to make it conscious. When you understand your empathic nature as Jung did, you stop seeing it as a problem to be solved and start seeing it as a gift to be refined. Your aura becomes a tool of consciousness rather than a source of suffering. The transformation is complete when you can walk into any room, feel everything that's happening energetically, and choose consciously how to respond. You're no longer at the mercy of your empathic gifts. You're the master of them. This doesn't make you cold or distant. In fact, conscious empathy is far more powerful than unconscious empathy because it serves love rather than fear, consciousness rather than compulsion, choice rather than reaction. Jung believed that empaths who achieve this level of integration become what he called wounded healers who have been healed, people who can guide others through the same transformation because they've walked the path themselves. Your rare aura, when consciously embodied, becomes a beacon that shows others it's possible to feel everything and remain whole, to love deeply and maintain boundaries, to serve others while honoring yourself. Remember Jung's hidden truth about the rare aura that only true empaths carry. It's not rare because few people possess empathic abilities. It's rare because few empaths learn to wield these abilities consciously. Jung wrote in his final works, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." For empaths, becoming who you truly are means transforming your wounds into wisdom, your sensitivity into sovereignty, your empathy into a conscious choice rather than an unconscious compulsion. Your empathic aura was forged in the fires of early experience, shaped by the necessity of survival, and refined through every act of healing you've offered to others. But it reaches its full radiance only when you learn to heal yourself first. Jung understood that the wounded healer archetype is just the beginning of the empathic journey, not the end. The completion is the sovereign healer, someone who can feel the full spectrum of human emotion while remaining centered in their own truth. Your aura is rare, not because you're broken, but because you've learned to transform brokenness into beauty. Not because you're weak, but because you've developed strength that can hold the full intensity of human experience. Not because you're meant to carry everyone's pain, but because you've learned to alchemize pain into wisdom. The world needs empaths who understand their gifts as Jung did, not as burdens to be endured, but as sacred abilities to be consciously directed. Not as wounds that define you, but as tools that serve consciousness. When you embody your empathic nature with full awareness, you become what Jung called a living bridge between the conscious and unconscious worlds. You help others access their own capacity for authentic feeling while maintaining your own energetic integrity. If you're ready to claim your empathic aura as the sacred gift it truly is, comment, "My sensitivity is my superpower." Your journey from wounded healer to sovereign healer isn't just personal transformation, it's contribution to collective healing. Every empath who integrates their gifts makes it easier for others to do the same. Share this with someone who needs to understand their empathic nature as a gift rather than a curse. And if you want to explore more about empathic sovereignty, check out my video, "Why a Fed-Up Empath is More Dangerous Than the Narcissist Ever Imagined," where I reveal what happens when empaths fully reclaim their power. Subscribe because we're just beginning to explore the depths of empathic mastery. Remember, your sensitivity isn't too much. Your empathy isn't weakness. Your rare aura isn't a burden. It's a bridge to consciousness that the world desperately needs. Thank you for watching. See you in the next dimension.